It's really late, I know. I decided I'm gonna start posting everything until Monday because it seems like there's a better response on Mondays going into Raw, and as opposed to the weekend, especially like tonight since it was Super Bowl Sunday, so everybody's distracted by Katy Perry's boobs bouncing all over the place and deflated balls. But also announcement, I'm just going to check. I'm actually, since the past few rounds I've really had to press for questions, we're going to just knock this down to once a month, so this is going to be the only post for February. I will have 2 posts in March, one at the beginning of March, and also I'm probably going to do a special edition before Mania. I'm not going to the Hall of Fame ceremony. I plain don't give a fuck about it. So, like, I can take questions during the day, and then I'll answer them that night, and I'll post everything that morning going into Mania, and then we'll go back to the once a month routine there. I feel like the once a month might actually be a better option just because, gives people time to come up with questions, blah, blah, blah. Plus, I imagine that this has probably lost some of its allure already. Not to mention, you're listening to me, and I may be the KoK Queen, but let's face it, I'm an ignorant motherfucker, so... My opinions and views do not necessarily reflect the views held by the rest of the admin group. So, never thought I was the smartest person or the most educated about wrestling. I just, for some reason, I talk and you guys listen. So, anyway, on to this week's questions. There is one person that submitted quite a few questions, and unfortunately, in light of the general rules, try to keep it to 1 or 2. Which I didn't post that, so that's not your fault. But I'm not going to be answering all your questions, and you know who you are. I'll be answering your first submission, but I'm going to hold off on your second submission until the next round. Because you actually asked a lot of really good questions. It's just, basically 4 questions within one video. Kind of a little one-sided compared to everybody else. So, I'm trying to be fair. So, but I appreciate the feedback. Alright, so going into the questions, hopefully this should, oh fuck it, I took a nap earlier, I anticipate going to sleep tonight. I may not even be going into work tomorrow because it's Snowmageddon, because Michigan, because, it's like the memes. 12 feet of snow, boss still going. Coming into work tomorrow, right? Anyway, on to the questions. The first one, she called it a 2-parter. Technically, it's not a 2-parter because even though she submitted 2 questions, one's from her, one's from her husband. So Brittany, first person, asks, what sort of steps or actions does Rusev need to take to remain a prominent wrestler instead of becoming a jobber? Well, first off, let's hope like hell he doesn't job to Cena at Fastlane. I feel like something's going to happen. I don't see a clean win happening from either opponent at all. And I feel like they're going to wrap this up at WrestleMania. It seems like that's what they've really been gearing towards, like building him up as the classic foreign monster heel. From there, yeah, he's going to get his defeat. I honestly hope it's not from Cena. I hope they bring Ryback into the picture, if only just because Ryback is more at his level. And by level, I mean, here's Rusev, here's Ryback. The company sees Cena up here. You see this dude beating this dude's about to go down here. Let's hope that, because that does have a tendency to happen. It's not that Cena's burying anyone, it's that the company just went, oh, the face of the company just beat you, time to start back from the bottom. And it shouldn't work like that, honestly. I'd rather someone who is at the same talent level, and at not just same talent level, and same position, for lack of a better term, in the company, should be beating him. Let Ryback get that win. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stop Rusev's momentum. If anything, I think he could use that to start a very good angle with Ryback, where they're going back and forth. Use it to kind of propel him and make him even more of a monster heel. He lost. He finally lost to an American. Let him start randomly coming through and tearing people apart. A loss doesn't necessarily mean a burial, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to kill your character. It should be added fuel to the fire. Make it so even Lana can't control him, where, have him go off on somebody during a match, just completely annihilate him, they're ringing the bell like mad, and let it actually be a credible opponent, too, not just some random jobber, and just have it to the point where it's refs running out to pull him off, He's not listening to Lana at all. Make him a monster. Make him a beast. I feel that they still got a lot more to do with Rusev. I mean, honestly, I initially, when Rusev first came out, I wasn't really sold on him, and it was like everybody. I was like everybody else. We were paying attention to Lana, but he's really come into his own over the past few months, and I actually enjoy watching his matches now. So, I'd like to see him get more on a mic, because it seems like I have seen a few people say, "Oh God, don't give him the mic, don't let him speak." It's like, you know what? No, let him speak. Speak only when he needs to, though, not just unnecessary, attempting to communicate with the audience. No, it's speak softly, carry a big stick sort of thing, but okay, maybe not the right phrase we want to use. When he speaks, you listen, that sort of thing. So just please don't let him lose to Cena. I have no idea what's on right now. Yes, I'm playing music. No. Oh. Yeah, maybe some dubstep. Sorry, I'm still getting over a sinus infection. So I apologize for all my grossness and my laziness. But thank you for your question, Brittany. And now, since you asked, your husband Rick wanted to know, and you asked on his behalf, with the future stars of NXT fitting into the Daniel Bryan / Dolph Ziggler body type and less of the hulking Cena size, do you predict that the WWE brass will be more accepting of the WWE World Heavyweight Championships of this size for the future? Yes, absolutely. Once Vinny Mac is out of the picture, that's the catch. He's got to be out of the picture. And actually, and it's funny this gets brought up because someone actually asked a question kind of along these lines, not entirely, but kind of along these lines, that I'm going to be addressing later, which pertains to Vinny Mac. But yes, you can tell, if you look at WWE, you look at the main roster versus NXT, Vince McMahon versus Trips, you see there's a significant difference. Vince, obviously, he's a great businessman. Everybody's saying that he's out of touch, and he's not creatively connecting. To an extent, yes, this is true. I feel in some instances, it's not necessarily him. There's probably a lot of factors because there's so much going on backstage that we don't know about, and even Road Dogg doesn't give us everything. We're not that privy to that sort of information. But you can tell that with Vince, it's more about the overall show, keeping people in there and keeping people watching and entertained, more focus on theatrics and storyline. Sorry, I have this weird, we're not getting into my word cuticle picking habit. Whereas with Freudian slip, with Trips, he still focuses on the storyline, but he's got one single writer, which a dude who wrote for SmackDown during its better years, and it's more of a focus on the actual wrestling. So I do feel that, like, over time, we're gonna see the stereotypical wrestler get phased out, and the new stereotype will be the Zigglers and the Bryans and the Ambroses and the Ballers and the Itamis, the Nevilles, all of them. We're not going to really have a choice if you look at everybody in NXT, aside from like Baron Corbin, Bull Dempsey, Kevin Owens. There's not any really huge guys, so it's more of like going to be like a forced acceptance. So, which also makes me wonder that how in the future, once Trips and Stephanie are at the point that they got to retire, and it's obviously going to be their kids taking over, how are they going to treat the WWE? Right now, they've got 3 daughters. So I'm excited for the future when they get into wrestling, when they get into the company, and and Aurora's already stated she wants to start wrestling. And you got to wonder about the other 2 girls, unless they end up having a son somewhere down the line. I'm excited for those prospects just because I think we'll see a real resurgence in women's wrestling taking over. Not to say that by that time it isn't going to be happening, but I feel there's going to be a huge emphasis on that. Vince was more about the showmanship. Trips is going to be more about the actual wrestling, and I feel like Stephanie and then her daughter is going to be more about, gender equality, which is going to be really, really exciting. I can't wait to see it. Granted, that's probably like 20 years down the line, but provided the company's still going by then, so. And again, I really apologize for this. I've got this weird nervous habit, and I've had it literally since I was 5, where I pick hangnails and cuticles and shit, and it's weird because my dad had that and my grandpa had it, but it's my grandpa on my mom's side, so it's like I'm fucked either way. You guys can put me on all my weird habits. Sorry. But yeah, that's my answer. Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Brittany. By the way, I've noticed you guys have only been with the group for a few weeks or a few months already. So I know I've just recently noticed your postings, and Brittany, I like you. You post quality material. Thank you. Thank you for being a decent member and lady of KoK. So, KoK. Anyway. Ed, my boy Ed, our resident page fanatic, sends a question. He asks, who are your favorite wrestlers? Who are your favorite wrestlers, male and female on NXT, main roster, Lucha Underground, TNA, and other indie promotions? It's going to be a little biased. I'm mainly a WWE mark, though I have seen some other promotions. I mean, I need to get into Lucha Underground. The fact that John Morrison is there should be enough to make me watch. It's just getting around to remembering. Okay, like I say with other promotions, it's not that I don't want to watch, it's remembering to watch. Because, you know, I have a memory like a fucking goldfish half the time. No, I don't want nationals. That being said, I mean, I have watched a few things outside of WWE. I like Tyson Dukes, or Dukes. Tyson Dukes. Or Kathy will have to correct me on the pronunciation of his last name, but he's really good. I like him. I've watched a little bit of AJ Styles. I like him. I really do. And obviously, you know, and most of the stuff that I've watched that is involved in these has been doing homework on specific wrestlers, mainly Rollins and Ambrose. So, now when it comes to favorite wrestlers, male and female, obviously main roster. I mean, I'm an Ambrose girl. You guys saw me going off in the group. Yeah, so I'm meeting the Titty Master. And obviously, I love Paige. I also really do like Naomi. I feel like Paige and Naomi's styles mesh really well. I mean, I remember one of their first matches, they were matching each other move for move, and that was pretty wicked. Obviously, when it comes to male talent on the main roster, love Rollins. Love the work he's doing. I'm sad that Justin Gabriel's gone. I mean, they could have utilized him more, and I understand why he left. And I'm excited for his indie prospects, and I hope he rolls through Michigan soon, because I would love to see him. But I enjoyed him. Was he all that charismatic? No. But the kid could move. Kid, he's older than me. But he was good. I like that Tyson Kidd is starting to come up and get taken more seriously. When it comes to the female wrestler, or when it comes to Divas division, I hate her. I don't know what it is about Nikki Bella that I hate. I hate her personality. There's just something about her that, like, no, like, legitimately, like, if I see her at WrestleMania and she's doing a signing, I'm going to turn and walk away. But I will give the girl credit. She is coming up. She's doing a lot better. And I keep harping on this match between her and Paige in the main event a couple weeks ago. Paige wasn't having to carry her nearly as much as she usually does. She's doing good. She's taking it seriously. And I'm glad to see that Sarah Del Rey's work is starting to finally pay off. Also, sorry, I like Layla. I enjoy seeing her in the ring. And I'm glad that Emma's going back down to NXT, and hopefully they're repackaging her, because in case we haven't noticed, cutesy quirky characters don't really make it on the main roster all that much, which is why I'm glad. Now this is segueing into NXT. This is why I'm glad that Bayley is starting to make an aggressive transition, because this is what's going to get her on that main roster, and it's going to help her thrive. The cutesy, fun Bayley with side ponytail and like the air things, yeah, that's adorable. I love it. She'll bomb on the main roster. The fact that she went after Charlotte like that and they had to pry them apart. You have no idea how excited I was for that. It gives me new hope for Bayley. It gives me more hope for Bayley than it does Charlotte. Charlotte's a phenomenal wrestler. She needs to work on that character a little bit. She seemed very wooden in that promo. Bayley came across more genuinely. Now when it comes to NXT, I love Adrian Neville. I love Sami Zayn. I can't wait to see Zayn and Neville. I mean, everybody's like freaking out that Neville is going to be turned into a literal Mighty Mouse character. No, I see him as this short, like, It's not literally he's gonna come out in costume Mighty Mouse. No, he's gonna be like the little Superman. He's gonna be like, you know, the little guy that you just can't kick his ass. You can't keep him down. So Neville is definitely one of my favorites on NXT. I'm sorry, I love Becky Lynch. She's probably one of my favorite divas, and Alexa Bliss. And Alexa is teeny tiny, but she's smart and she's fast. Oh my god, that sunset bomb, just, oh my god, I love it. Obviously, Enzo. Everybody loves Enzo because, you know, we're all certified G's. Bonafide studs. I'm sorry, anytime I see him, I just have to yell, "How you doing?" So, if I were to get into TNA, honestly, I'd probably want to pay attention to Jessica Havoc because she just looks like a fucking beast. I wouldn't really be able to name people off when it comes to the male roster. Just Jessica Havoc intrigues me. Oh, speaking of Jessica Havoc, when it comes to NXT, I'm fucking jazzed for Solomon Crow finally coming up. I mean, give him about, I'm going to say, probably going to be a year and a half in the NXT roster and then brought up to the main roster. And once he's brought up to the main roster, Switchblade Conspiracy reunion, anyone? It's going to be tits. So, hopefully that was a satisfactory answer. I said, now go page away. Jeffrey Jordan. He asks, what is your favorite stable / faction, male and female? No, wait, sorry, that's the past one. Stable and faction, if you can build a stable or faction of wrestlers, dead or alive, who would it be? I'll limit the choices to 4 individuals. I suppose everybody's expecting me to say The Shield. Because, oh my god, Ambrose and Rollins and Reigns. I enjoyed them. Not my favorites. Why are they not my favorites? Because, 2 words. Actually, no, I was actually more for, I loved NWO. That was it. I mean, I know everybody gets Wolfpack shit, but honestly, NWO was probably my favorite faction because when I was getting into that and the whole cheering the heels and all that, it was that weird little spot of time where I was basically fucked WWE and went to WCW because that's where Bret went. I was a huge Bret Hart fan, and then I started my little goth phase. So there's Sting and all his crow face paint, and there Be Still My Beating Heart. That got me into NWO, and I freaking loved the NWO because I loved Kevin Nash and I loved Scott Hall, and I liked how they were just basically running the show. Literally, unbeknownst to me, I had no idea that they literally were running the show and pretty much trying to kill the company, well, without realizing it. I loved it, you know. Well, NWO for life, always. Though I did enjoy DX, but I didn't really appreciate DX until I was much older and I kind of realized where they were going because I was also, when DX first hit the scene and they were starting to go into Attitude Era, I was still kind of a sheltered kid. So I was just like, oh my god, the whole suck it and women flashing, and I was just like, I can't watch this. This is just horrible. It's disgusting and blah, blah, blah. And of course now I'm older and I'm like, God, that shit was like so cheesy. But it's awesome. Also a Brood fan. Because again, got in the goth phase. Edge. Not so much Gangrel, but yeah, definitely Edge. And also, obviously, you know, Brett and Owen and Neidhart and Pillman. Loved seeing all of them. So, now if I had to build a stable or faction of wrestlers, dead or alive, who would it be? Honestly, we don't see female. I did not that it would ever really survive in this current incarnation of WWE. You know, Vince McMahon drain. I would love to see a female stable. I really would. I mean, NXT, they had it, and it worked out. You know, the BFFs. I want to see a stable, and I want it to be. I was like, how now? Honestly, it's like we're gonna go. I'm just racking my brain here for main roster and then NXT roster. 2 girls are going to be brought up. I really do want to see it as Paige, AJ, Sasha Banks, and Becky Lynch. I think that honestly could be a very badass female group. And it doesn't necessarily have to be heel or face. Let's make it tweener because honestly, AJ can do heel or face. She's good in either role. Paige is more of a tweener. Becky can do good in either role. Not to mention we'd see Paige and Becky in the same group. And remember, they fought and they were together in the Indies. It was Paige, Becky, and Paige's mom. So it was actually Brittany Knight, Sweet Saraya, and Rebecca Knox, I believe. So we can see. So I'd say Sasha and Paige would be more the tweener roles. And then Paige and Becky could either be the full-on heels or the full-on faces. So there'd be some sort of balance there. So I think that would be a really good female stable because all of them have these attitudes where they're not the typical female diva attitudes. They don't give a fuck. And they're all really fucking good. So I would love to see those 4 women in the stable and just tear the Divas Vision apart. That would be amazing. Just rip through the bells like nobody's business. Not that it's really that hard to do. But, those are my answers. Hashtag girl power. Coctimus Prime. Literally, that's the name. That's the signature in the email. Coctimus Prime. And this is, obviously, I'm not phrasing it as a really long question as you're seeing, but in your opinion, why does Vince love the bigger guys and continuously hand them big pushes while disregarding the more agile talent? This is like a whole bunch of questions put together. Why do you think he allows no-name wrestlers without even theme music to wrestle? Said guys he's pushing to increase their reputation. Some of these I'm trying to make sense of. He's done it with Ryback most notably, and as well as recently with the Ascension. It doesn't make sense to set up squash matches with people who have no reputation to make it credible in the first place. My thoughts. The Vince McMahon thing, the bigger guys thing. Okay, I've been saying this in the group for weeks. I'm going to say it again. Vince is living vicariously. That's what it boils down to. Remember the Stone Cold podcast when he had mentioned that he actually wanted to come into the WWF when his dad had it, and he wanted to come in as a wrestler, and his dad just flat out said, no, put his foot down, you're coming in, and you're doing this, you're doing interviews, blah, 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 blah. Yes, Vince got his chance to wrestle, but, I mean, honestly, in all those matches, obviously it's the talent that's doing most carrying. Which kind of makes me wonder about the Steph and Brie Bella match, because Steph kind of held her own, and let's face it, Steph was a badass in that match, but that's neither here nor there. This is my theory. I mean, Vince is in his 70s. Vince is kind of seen, not necessarily the light at the end of the tunnel, period, but the light at the end of the tunnel for his career. I mean, it's said that Reigns is his final hand pick, and then he's done after this. I feel like that he spent most of his wrestling, most of his years as, running the company. It was the 70s, it was the 80s, and even into the 90s. A good majority of the time that he's been running the show, wrestlers were larger than life. I mean, look at all of them. They muscles on top of muscles, and because they were all taking steroids, and it was all about, again, it harkens back to that theatricality. You're more liable to believe that someone can kick someone's butt if they're freaking huge, as opposed to Daniel Bryan's size, or Seth Rollins' size, or even CM Punk's size. I mean, if you look at theater if you look at drama as a whole, if you look at theater, there's always been this, they're always asking you in movies and in TV shows and actual Broadway, everything, suspend disbelief, if only for a couple hours. Because they're telling a story, and you're looking to be entertained, so you have to make everything stand out. These characters have to be almost like Jungian archetypes. The bad guys gotta be really fucking bad. The good guys gotta be Mary fucking Sue's, and so on and so forth. Obviously, things are starting to become more realistic over time, but, back 60s, 70s, 80s, that's how it was. And 70s and 80s primarily, even into the mid-90s, that's how it was. Again, the whole larger than life. And I feel that's one reason that he's focusing on the big guys, because he's still in that state, because, feel like maybe he reverted back to that state after he decided he legitimately didn't have too much competition anymore. He went back to the formula that originally worked for him for like 20, 25 years. Not really realizing that the crowd hadn't regressed, it had evolved. Also, again, like I've been saying, I feel like he's living vicariously. This is harkening back to what I was originally starting out with, the whole Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast thing. He didn't get to really be a wrestler like he wanted to be. He got his few years in the ring, but that wasn't originally what he wanted to do, and his dad said no. So I feel like with Cena, with The Rock, with Hogan, with Cena, with Reigns now, he's getting to live out the characters that he originally would have liked to have been. Like, it's like, this is what I wanted to do with my life. This is how I feel my character would have been. So, I'm going to write it and translate it to him. I mean, listen, ugh, itchy, sorry. I shaved, too. Listen to Jericho's podcast that he did with Ambrose, and how Ambrose, they talked about that one, like right before Hell in a Cell, where Foley ended up coming out. And Dean was like tearing apart that mannequin, and he was actually talking to Vince about it. Vince was like, well, I want you to do this. And like, Vince was really getting into destroying the mannequin to the point where Ambrose was like, dude, are you okay? You're taking this a little too seriously. Would you like to go out there and do it? Or something to that effect. The crazy, this probably living through Ambrose as well. The whole, like, over-the-top crazy lunatic fringe loose cannon thing, which is very reminiscent of Pillman. I wouldn't be surprised if Vince had a lot more hands in that than we think. I mean, obviously we saw that with the whole, Dean has to get evaluated to be able to participate in the Rumble, which just screamed Vince McMahon. But I feel like, in a way, any character that's getting a huge push right now, Vince obviously has his hand in, and that's his way of getting to live out his fantasies through these men. So I feel like that's why he focuses on the bigger guys, or will give extremely gimmicky characters to people, because it's him. It's his way of getting it out of the system. As for the, when you mentioned Ryback and, the Ascension kind of, they're squashing all these jobbers, and they just have, like, there's been no build-up, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Well, take a look back in the day and how they used to build characters up before they started doing the introductions. I mean, like, Adam Rose, we got the series of vignettes before he came on. Ascension, series of vignettes, even less so, before they came on. Ryback just kind of got thrown out there, but Ryback also had a history of the WWF, just different incarnations. There was Ryan Reeves, and then Skip Sheffield, and now Ryback. So in a way, we were kind of used to him. It was just character revamps. If you look at how they used to do it back in the day, when they were introducing people, besides having some vignette, they didn't really start. I don't think they really started doing the vignette thing until like the mid to late 90s. I mean, Edge had his vignettes, but he would come out through the crowd, and he was basically starting off with jobbers. That's how they used to do it. They bring these newbies out, the tag teams, the singles competitors, and they would be going against, they'd be doing squash matches against jobbers as a means of building them up to make them look like they're credible competitors. And that's when I see what they're doing with the Ascension. Now, initially I'm like, oh my god, it's a fucking squash job, and oh my god, Vince is just jealous, blah, blah, blah. And then they've not even been on the roster, a month, and they've already had a match in one of the biggest pay-per-views, in one of the big four. They were the opening match, and they were against the New Age Outlaws. Which in itself is kind of big. I mean, yeah, the New Age Outlaws eating a loss isn't really that much to them anymore, but that's also big because that's two of the most respected men in not just the locker room, but, two well-respected men backstage, part of creative, and also part of one of the biggest and most successful factions, not just in WWE history, but in pro wrestling history, willingly going out there to help those guys out after, bringing them down, kicking their butt, all of a sudden they're getting their asses handed to them. I think that says a lot, so I don't necessarily think at this point that the Ascension are being buried. It's just, it's going to be a very slow, steady climb up to the top. They're going the classic route. Bring them up. And how often anymore do we see local talent get hired to come in and job to people? You don't really see that too much anymore, aside from down in NXT. Oh, one of our own actually got in there. So, I mean, we saw it with Ryback, and we're seeing it with the Ascension, but it's kind of few and far between anymore. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It's a classic move that tends to work. That it worked in the past and it works now. We were all entertained by Ryback coming out, meeting random jobbers, and kind of building up to become looking, kind of beast-like until he got handed a credible opponent, and then we would see, and then we got Ryback and Punk, and we got the Shield out of it. So, I mean, at the end of the day, people are going to think what they want to think. They're going to bitch. They're going to, bitch and complain and think that, oh, this is just stupid bullshit. They need to give them a credible opponent. Why would you take a team that's virtually unknown? Granted, they did well in NXT, but why would you take a team that's virtually unknown to the whole WWE universe and instantly throw them into an angle with a tag team that's been around for years? It makes no sense. You got to build them up. You got to get the audience used to seeing them. I mean, very rarely does that ever really work anymore. I mean, yeah, the Shield was the last one that helped, that really worked, but they also had Punk and Heyman to work with. Heyman can make anybody look like $1,000,000. He can make Stalin and Hitler look like $1,000,000 fucking bucks. He could paint them to. I mean, granted, he always works at heel. He works as a heel manager, but if they had to make him a face manager, it could probably work, and that's when he would take Hitler and Stalin and make them look like the lords and saviors of WWE. Probably a really fucking poor analogy, but you get what I mean. Like, if he could take the greatest individuals, he could probably take Gandhi and make Gandhi look like the fucking devil, and vice versa. So, that's part of the reason. I mean, there's a few reasons why the Shield made it, just like that, and they kind of broke the rules and went against the grain in how you would normally build a stable. But now that the Ascension's been there for a while and I kind of see where they're going with it, I don't necessarily, they gotta they had no reputation, so they gotta make it, they gotta get credible, and really the only way to do that is either do what they did with Jericho and Rock, and by the way, people already knew who the fuck Jericho was before he came into WWE, so they didn't really have to build him up that much. Blech. Sorry, I keep adjusting. But it just harkens back to, and I'm rambling here, it harkens back to classic booking. And I think really the only reason I think people throw a fit over it is we're not used to seeing it anymore, that's why. So, start watching stuff from the 80s and the 90s. I mean, fucking look at Barry Horowitz. Everybody loves him. He was the world's best jobber. But he helped give credibility to a lot of guys. So, don't necessarily think so much it's a burial job anymore. Just really slow classic booking that we're not used to seeing. So, that's my thoughts. Brandon asks, in your opinion, does Raw need to go back to a 2-hour show? Yes! So much yes. Oh my god, yes. Going to 3 hours was probably a huge mistake because 3 hours is a ridiculous amount of time to try to keep everybody tuning in. And as you noticed, the good shit always happens at the top of the hour because they need to start bringing people back in. Stephanie mentioned it in 2012 when they went to the 3 hour as, we are in an age where we are engulfed by social media and you're really having to compete to keep people's attention. So they are trying to make it as interactive as possible. I agree with that, but that being said, you don't have to have it 3 fucking hours in order to make it work. Go back to the 9 to 11. Most of the big shit happened, I think also they did that because kids. Notice that from the 10 to close hour is when, if they're going to have anything remotely risque or just a little outside of PG norms happen, it's going to happen in the 10 o'clock hour when typically most kids are in bed. Yeah, honestly, I feel like 2 hours is it's too much for them, or 3 hours is too much for them, and if they're worried about losing a portion of their audience, then go 8 to 10. Either go 9 to 11 or 8 to 10. That 9 o'clock hour is when everything takes a slump. And most of the time, it's, I don't know. I just really feel they need to go back to 2 hours because I know the biggest demographic that they're wanting to hit are the freaking kids, because of Cena and the Usos. Now, bashing on the Usos, I actually enjoy them. Sorry, I do. If you've ever seen them live, you'd get it. They're really fun live. But yeah, it harkens back to having to compete on Monday nights against a lot of other things and kids, and just, it's too much. I mean, Road Dogg even came into the group and said that he was with Creative one day for like 9 hours, and they still had like so much time. It's like they had so much ground they still had to cover creatively. They had just barely touched on to Raw, and they still had to take care of SmackDown and a few other things. So I think the product would improve if they didn't have so much time that they needed to fill. So plus that also means that they could really pace out storylines instead of having to condense everything down and make it like an angle usually lasts on average around 3 to 4 months. They could draw it out and get more out of it if they didn't have so much time to film. Because it's like, I don't know. I feel like it's part of it is, with all these angles that they have to do, they gotta fit them into 3 hours, so they're gonna push everything to the forefront. And I don't think it should be like that. Just like the angles that are more well developed, and have them progress on Smack, and have them move forward on Raw, and then the ones that they're still working on, till I get them to SmackDown for a little bit before they can be moved to Raw. So I don't know. Just this 3-hour thing ain't working. So thank you, Brandon. Lastly, Clay. Is the Royal Rumble backlash based on Roman actually winning, or the fact that they made everyone else look like Barry Horowitz in comparison? I think it's a little bit of both. And I always say I need to write an article for the Pit, and I've been holding off on my opinion. I've been holding off on writing because I kind of want to get the lay of the land, so to speak, on how everybody else is really viewing everything. And I've seen a lot of really good fan posts on Cage Side Seats lately in regards to this. And one thing that they touch on, it's like we're not actually booing Roman. We're booing Creative's decision to go ahead and push him anyway. I think it's a combination of factors. I think they're booing Roman winning because of the whole he's too green thing, because Daniel Bryan, because of the way they just unceremoniously eliminated Ambrose and Wyatt and Ziggler. I mean, Wyatt was the Iron Man in the match, and they just whoop, whoop, over the edge. How the fuck do you do that to someone who was owning a majority of the actual match? And then at the end, the final 4, you had Ambrose, you had Reigns, and just Ambrose is known for being the wild man. I was actually hoping it was going to come down to Ambrose and Reigns, because I'm like, this is a good fucking heel turn from Ambrose. No, just whoop. It's like, really? If anybody could have made Roman look strong, it would have been Ambrose. I think everybody was really just booing just because at the end of the day, they're actually booing Vince. The unfortunate thing is because Roman is the face of this entire thing, he's going to catch heat. Everybody's going to say, oh, it's nothing personal, it's not against Roman. But you can't boo Creative, you can't boo Vince McMahon because they're not out there, so you're going to focus everything on Roman. So eventually, over time, it is going to become personal. It is going to become about Roman, because the people you want to get to, you can't get to. So what are you going to do? You're going to go after the fucking face. You're going to go after who's presented to you. So, although I do think fans are easing up a little bit, the biggest mistake I think they made is if they weren't intending on Daniel Bryan winning and they weren't intending on Rollins winning, they shouldn't have even put Daniel Bryan in the Rumble to begin with. Now, in my last article, I presented a couple scenarios in which why Daniel Bryan and Seth Rollins having Daniel Bryan win the Rumble and Rollins win the Triple Threat, setting up for Mania, would be absolutely amazing and have it carry into SummerSlam. Mainly just because I would love to see the D-Bry angle wrap up where it actually started 2 years ago at SummerSlam. That's when it really kicked off, and that's when it should come full circle. And I can understand why they wanted to put Daniel Bryan in it, because one, they wanted to They wanted to put everybody's fears to rest as to whether or not he could come back too. From a financial standpoint, it was fucking awesome. That ensured asses were in seats, not just Lesnar, Bryan. But they weren't intending on having Rollins come out with that belt. So in that respect, it's like, everybody thinks, oh, Daniel Bryan and Brock Lesnar would be a great match, and they have nothing to worry about. And it's like Brock is a professional, and it just, oh my god, I can find better ways to put it. Daniel Bryan and Brock Lesnar is still a fucking bad idea because you're putting in this little I don't want to say midget, but he kind of is. You're putting in this smaller guy against a guy who is twice his height, twice his size, suplex machine. You really want to put a suplex machine, someone who may be professional but has had a reputation in the past for not playing nice with others. You want to put him in the ring with someone who just came off a near career-threatening injury. One wrong move, one bad suplex, Bryan's gone permanently. Would you really like to see that? It's like, think about it for a second. It's like, everybody loves Daniel Bryan, and we're so happy he's back. And then Brock, he accidentally botched a fucking suplex, and Daniel lands on his neck, and he's gone. But you got to see Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. You got your wish. Oh my god, you should be so happy, right? He just ended his career for your ass. No. Think logistically, and think logically for a moment. Not logistically, logically. If you are running a company and you've got someone who just came back off of an injury on par, or maybe even worse, not even worse, because Edge is gone, he can't wrestle, but on par with Adam Copeland's injury, would you seriously want to throw him into the fucking fray like he had been working for 300 days a year already? Are you fucking stupid? This is why you assholes shouldn't book shows. Sorry, but it's true. Get pissed all you want. I don't give a fuck. Glad I could finally get that off my chest. If WWE actually listened to us, there wouldn't be a fucking company. So it's a combination of a lot of things. I feel very bad for Roman because he got handpicked and thrust into the limelight before he was ready, and obviously he's not going to say no when his career is probably on the line. You don't say no to Vince McMahon. Punk learned that the hard way. But I feel they could have handled the Rumble better. I really do. I mean, I don't think Roman's ready, but I have faith that he's gonna at least be 90% before he gets there. I don't necessarily think. I mean, everybody's still gonna tune in no matter what because it's Lesnar and it's probably gonna be his last match. I mean, I've got faith in Reigns. I do. Kind of have to, and I want to see him succeed. I don't ever wish anybody ill intentions. I mean, they busted their butts to get to the company, whether you want to admit it or not. And hey, who are we to judge? We're not in the ring, and he's still laughing all the way to the bank. He's still making more than us. Wondering if there's anything else that I can include in this. Oh, one thing that Travis, one of my coworkers, he's also in the group, Travis LaRue. Once he was able to get over, the initial, this is bullshit because he doesn't like Reigns, he's a huge D-Rat fan. He got into the booking standpoint. We already had the Cinderella story. We already had the magic of the Authority and the small guy winning and all that last year. Do you really want to cheapen last year by having the exact same thing happen 2 years in a row? That makes no sense. That just totally, it's like Daniel Bryan got the Ultimate storyline last year. I mean, I feel like having it happen 2 years in a row would just, it'd be boring. It would kill the magic that was WrestleMania 30. It honestly would. I feel like WrestleMania 30 wouldn't have meant shit. I mean, that was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. That was a momentous occasion. Why would you want to cheapen it by having history repeat itself completely twice? Yes, history is repeating itself right now when it comes to the Rumble, but it doesn't have to be exact, And I guarantee we didn't have that big of a voice as we like to think we did. Just because it happened last year doesn't mean it's going to happen again. History isn't necessarily, like, this isn't a situation where if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. It's not. It's not at all, because they're going to figure something out. So, I apologize for going off topic. Just the entire situation just makes me want to rip my eyes out from what I've read, and bust my eardrums from everything I've heard. It's because it's like, at the end of the day, you guys we're not the ones who call the shots. We're not the ones who book the shows. We're not the ones who are to consider the short and the long term. We are the fans. You can vocalize your objections all you want, but at the end of the day, you're still tuning in, you're still watching, so really how much of a say do you really have when you're actively buying into the product? I'm going to say the same thing here that I say to everyone else. If you are really that upset with their decisions, stop watching and move on to another company. That's the only way that they're ever going to change for the better, is if they lose their business. But also bear in mind, the hardcore fan base has nothing on the casual fan base. The casual fan base are the one who pay the bills. They're the one who put the money in the wrestlers' pockets. We are but a minute fraction. And no matter how hard you try, I guarantee you are not going to be able to change the casual fan's mind. Because the casual fan doesn't give that much of a fuck. Hashtag Miss Devil's Advocate. Alright, so I feel like I've probably pissed enough people off, and I'm going to launch a bunch of disagreements, which, hey, have at it. That's what you guys are there for. I'm willing to say what most people don't want to hear, hence why I'm probably going to end up registering, actually, I'm not even going to get into that. I'll announce it when it happens, but there is a reason one of my friends calls me Miss Devil's Advocate, so, which actually I'm going to have to get on him for that. It's like, it's one thing to hear from your friends, but when you're hearing it from fucking rock stars, that's when maybe you should be like, okay, well, maybe I am kind of, So, anyway, thanks for listening to the rants, and thank you for all the submissions. And Brittany, since Brittany had also mentioned, when I go to WrestleMania, I should, kind of give live updates and everything. I'm going to try to do that to the best of my abilities. Most of the WrestleMania stuff, as you know, kind of takes place between that Thursday and that Sunday. I'm heading out a few days early, mainly because I used to live in the Bay Area. I want to visit friends. I kind of want to visit on some of my old haunts. So once the actual WrestleMania shit starts taking place, I'll let you guys know. I've got a few things in mind when it comes to WrestleMania. Got a few people I need to kind of get in touch with and start planning some shit out now. I got some plans going outside of the usual WrestleMania antics. Besides, I only bought in for that Saturday for Access, so because of what all I can afford. So. Until next month, cocksuckers, behave in the group. Don't piss me off. Don't piss other people off. Or piss people off, just be respectful about it. If you are in an area that's not completely laden with snow, count your blessings. If you are in an area that's completely laden with snow, be careful out there. And I will see you motherfuckers in the group.